Hey folks, Nick here from another BookTube channel. Today, taking a look at the return of Mr. X, more specifically, looking at Mr. X number 2 within this volume. There's a lot that I don't know about the Hernandez brothers and the alternative comics history in general. It's a fairly new avenue for me in my comics reading career. Um, and Love and Rockets itself is something that I've only recently started exploring. I've only read the first couple volumes. They're not my favorite stories. I actually liked the Palomar stuff more so than Maggie the Mechanic. But something that I cannot deny, and which I really do enjoy, is the artwork of the brothers. Jaime is widely considered to be, the savant, the genius artist of the group. I really like Gilbert as well. Uh, so, there's no denying Jaime has like a certain specialness about his art. So I was at a used bookshop the other day. They had a small graphic novel section. I saw this on the shelf, The Return of Mr. X, and I saw Hernandez on the side. So flipped it open, and sure enough, this is apparently an early work by the Hernandez brothers, with Gilbert and Mario doing the story and Jaime doing the artwork. Got this super cheap because, as you can see, this front page is loose, so not a bad pickup. And I'll flip through really quickly from the first issue. Basically, what the setup here is. Oh, so this is funny. It's called The Return of Mr. X, right? So I bought it thinking like, all right, you know what? I've never read a Mr. X comic before, so his return isn't going to be super impactful to me. But maybe I'll appreciate the story for what it is. As it turns out, from what I can find, this is the first Mr. X series and story. So it's called The Return of Mr. X, but it is actually the beginning. It's where the story starts off. So that's great. That means I haven't missed anything, and I was able to read it, and I did enjoy this quite a bit. This is the beginning of part 2, which we'll be going through, and I just from this first spread from this issue, this is why I chose to do issue 2 instead of issue 1. I just felt like I had more things to say about issue 2. I liked the visual layout of issue 2 a bit more. I think this is a fantastic spread because it's giving you a quick recap of pretty much everything that happened in the first issue, and it's doing it in a very satisfying way. So this city, Radiant City, which kind of has like a Gotham City vibe. I kind of you could see kind of searchlights behind people when you get a wide shot of the city. It reminded me very much of like the opening credits for the animated Batman series. Like, look at this there. That really stood out to me. And I know this was, before all that stuff. So maybe some influence on stuff like that gothic architecture of like the Tim Burton Batman even, or like that movie Dark City. And you could see the cool treatment of the background buildings here, this cityscape, all these different lights. I couldn't help but notice that there's like a little silhouette of a guy who is plummeting to his death. And that's something that I think is that comes up more and quite a bit, because Mr. X, his actual name is Walter Eichmann. He was the architect of this city, one of 2 architects of this city, and he's not happy with what it's turned into. He had a specific vision for it, and now he feels that it's being corrupted by characters like this guy here, Arnold Zamora, who started out in racketeering, but now has mostly gone straight, but he's still up to no good. This is Zamora's girlfriend, Patrice, who bumped into Mr. X and has kind of developed this weird obsession with him. This is Mr. X's girlfriend, Mercedes. These are some henchmen for Zamora. And again, I love the layout. I love all the different, when the backgrounds, when we're getting the introductions for these characters. I like the the shades behind her. I like the detailed like bathroom behind her. I like the reverse silhouette buildings behind them. And it's undeniable that Jaime is great at building a female figure. All of his women look fantastic, and I love also his cartoonish faces. Some of the reaction shots we get in this is really great. I feel like I lingered on that way too long. Colors is also kind of interesting. Colors are done by somebody else. That's not a Hernandez. Who did the colors? Sorry. Coloring by Paul Revoche and Klaus Schoenfeld. I'm not super familiar with them. I know that Carl Revoche did this painted cover as well. I don't know. I'm lukewarm on these colors. I kind of wish it was in black and white because I think Jaime's work is so stunning in black and white. But there are also instances where I think it works pretty well in the favor of the comic. For example, here, Mercedes, this is Mr. X's girlfriend, sees these thugs walk into the club. And in the previous issue, they had gotten one over on Mr. X. They knocked him off a building. They assumed they killed him, and they stole his briefcase from him. In that briefcase, Mr. X had previously stolen something from their employer, Zamora. So they've gotten it back. And having that briefcase be a distinct blue when there's no other blue in this entire room really makes it pop, really makes it stand out. So they're going up to Zamora's office to deliver like the kind of bad news. He wanted Mr. X alive because he needs to know what he wanted to do with what he had stolen. Basically, stole these like blueprints for the city. Up there, Zamora's arguing with his girlfriend because she was seen out at a party and she had given his guys the slip. So he's very protective over her, or possessive rather, and she doesn't really care for that. So she's going to act out on the later part of this issue as well. The figures. This is something that I think is so visually pleasing about Jaime is there's an interesting amount of like detail when it's necessary, but also paring down when it's not. So like these very basic like structures, like this. It's a pretty basic frame. A lot of blank space, not a lot of lines on the like the suit, not a lot of wrinkles, just deliberate wrinkles. Very like Tothian, like choosing where it's necessary. Something like this, like a very like the squared shoulders, perfectly squared body, feels almost blocky. It's simplifying things, but then you also have something that's really beautiful, like almost detailed like that. Again, more of those cartoony aspects of Jaime's drawing. You got the smoke lines coming out of this guy's head. So just a fun variety. Mercedes overhears the goons tell Zamora that they've killed Mr. X. The briefcase is full of junk. He must have moved what he had stolen. So now Mercedes is upset. She goes into the office and she takes the busted and broken briefcase, and she's mourning the loss of her boyfriend. And good panel for that, pulling out further, having her sit. She looks very lonely. And then we have a little bit of a rundown of what's going on in the city. So we see an assault going on, but it's also there's these robots that walk around and they're supposed to be taking care of the city, I guess sanitation or protection or whatever. And there's a woman here that's beating him with a bat. You could see like the spring on the arm. So even though it's just a silhouette, you can kind of tell. You could tell that it's not a human being. This guy's yelling at this robot because he's not cleaning up this garbage. And the robot says that it's not in my jurisdiction. So he's not authorized to clean up in that area. That pile is where Mr. X had fallen. He is alive. Nice silhouette of him emerging. See, this is why where I would like the black and white to be present. Because anytime Jaime goes with a silhouette, I know that it would look so freaking awesome against a white background. Like this panel would look terrific if that was all just white. Or this panel would look great if the whites were allowed to just shine through there. Same thing for down here. Mr. X, I guess, he takes this drug that he designed that allows him to stay up for 24 hours. I guess it also makes him very hungry He has to refuel by ordering 25 hot dogs from this vendor. And more instances where I wish it was just black and white, because this page is full of frames, like this spotlight framing her, this doorway framing her there, the hanging lamp framing them. Would look really stark in black and white. Would look really cool. But overall, honestly, I don't think the color does too bad of a job. I actually do kind of like it. I don't know how to describe this color process, but it's kind of muted, a muted color palette. And it doesn't look too bad. There are some instances where the actual like word balloons can get kind of muddied, which is a problem for me. But overall, like it's not killing the experience. Mr. X is teamed up with this like police officer Katsuda. He's vowing to get Zamora locked up by whatever means necessary, whatever it takes. And another great instance, another great example of just sprinkling in like how bad this city has gotten. There's a guy just hanging out the window with a knife in his back, but it's also cartoony. He's got his tongue hanging out like a little cartoon character. So there's like a grittiness to this city, but it's also not super dour. It's almost comical. And I think if that's what they were going for, I think it worked really well. Pretty fun. This is a really funny sequence to me. So Zamora's girlfriend, Patrice, again, great figure by Jaime. She is gonna play a prank on Zamora by hiring this guy who is bald, dressing him up like Mr. X, and she's gonna have Zamora walk in on them, seemingly about to have sex, just to make him jealous, just to mess with him. Because she knows how possessive he gets. Zamora walks in and sees this, and he gets these flashbacks of when he was a young man, and like I guess how he made a name for himself. And in all of those flashbacks, he is killing somebody, shooting them. I love this really thick black outline on his face. This is a very Ditko kind of image right there of just the eyes peeking out. And they're like, they have a lot of the stress lines around the eyelids and the sweat that's dripping. So he reverts to tight. He grabs a gun. She's trying to play it off, and say, just a joke. We gotcha. He comes out. He's packing heat, and so he starts blasting. He misses. The guy manages to run out. More of that cartooning. Got the speed cloud when this guy hits the dirt. Hits the road, and one of the goons catches a stray, gets caught in the crossfire, and his goon buddy is crying over him, and he gets upset at Patrice he blames her. Like, this is, if she hadn't done this stupid prank, he'd still be alive. Mr. X shows up at the right time and rescues her. This is a good use of color too. Another, like just that stark red and blue, kind of back to the EC Comics days. These panels here, this sequence reminds me very much of Ditko. I guess anytime I see like squared anatomy, it just gives me Ditko vibes. I guess. I wonder if that makes sense. I think that makes sense. Mr. X chases after Zamora, who is now chasing after the imposter Mr. X in the street, firing blindly at him. And the imposter happens to run into Mercedes, who also mistakes him for Mr. X. So she tackles him, gives the real Mr. X time to catch up. But then it also gives Zamora time to catch up to both of them. And then Mercedes saves the day by knocking him over the head with the briefcase. And he's able to get arrested by the incoming police officer. So Zamora is going to get locked up, and that's great. And Mr. X, Walter, goes home to his girlfriend, and that's it. That's, I guess, the first story arc down. I don't know if Zamora comes back. I haven't actually read beyond this point yet. I just read those first two issues, and I was like, hey, this was fun. I would like to talk about it a little bit. So that is Mr. X number 2. Let me know if you have read this. Oh, see, before I close, here's an example of him showing up, random places. He comes in through the ceiling, and I love his just silhouette coming down upside down, and it scares the crap out of her. Oh, I really like her figure here. Like, I like the arm resting on that chair back. You can see, like, the shoulder is propped up a little bit higher than it would be. I like the folds in the robe. Like, this, for some reason, this stood out to me as like a particularly really good pose. But anyway, I sidetracked myself there. I enjoyed this. I liked it. And I look forward to reading the next 2 issues. I understand that the Hernandez brothers left after the first 4 issues because of payment issues. I guess some late checks. I have no idea if Mr. X continued on well, I know it continued on. I just don't know what its legacy is, though. Just those initial impressions of like what the city looks like and the general style of it. I mean, seems like it really probably did leave an impression on a few readers back in the 80s. And I think a lot of that has to do with Jaime's incredible skill. So let me know your thoughts about Mr. X. Let me know if there's anything that I missed in that issue that you thought was worth noting. Thank you very much for spending some time with me today, but now it's time to get back to reading.